This is the download from Sounds Profitable, your daily source for the essential news in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Here's what you need to know for today, Tuesday, February 17th. First up, video in Apple Podcasts. All the details. This is by James Cridland over at Pod News. The beta version of iOS 26.4 is available for developers, and it includes supports of HLS for video podcast distribution. You can, and should, read Cridland's breakdown for more specifics, but suffice it to say, HLS adoption means video podcast episodes will be distributed to Apple Podcasts via the RSS feed. This also means, since video files live in the podcast host instead of being manually duplicated to platforms like Spotify and YouTube, dynamically inserted ads are feasible for video podcasts in a world where most major platforms have HLS support. Pave Studios founder Max Cutler highlights that, indeed, that's the future we're headed for as YouTube and Spotify are working on HLS ingestion. Acast has also announced they're aiming to fully support HLS distribution to Apple Podcasts. Cutler also stresses the power of dynamic ad insertion, as podcasting has already experienced this when DAI became widely adopted in the audio world. Adding DAI as normal to video in the industry will have the potential to bridge the spending gap between podcasting's massive audience and the amount of advertisers are actually spending on us. Next up, YouTube pirating of Netflix's sports shows has already begun. Front Office Sports covers a relatively new problem in the world of podcasting: content piracy. While people freebooting podcast episodes has been somewhat common since the beginning of podcasting, rarely has paywalled content been re-uploaded in such a way it garners significant attention. After all, re-uploading clips or distributing episodes further has been expected behavior of open podcasting fandom for years. But in the case of now Netflix-exclusive sports podcasts like 3 and Out with John Middlekauff, which are being pirated and re-uploaded to YouTube in full. And they remain a difficult thing to combat, as any movie studio struggling to ban accounts uploading entire movies in 3-minute chunks will tell you. Even the channel uploading John Middlekauff episodes is unfazed, posting a video explaining, quote, Netflix corporate overlords, end quote, have pulled the full episodes, and the uploader is moving to a secondary account that'll continue re-uploading Middlekauff content. A side effect of podcasting becoming a mainstream content feed is, unfortunately, podcasts are now in a position to feed into content piracy food chains that have refined themselves over the past 2 decades. Next up, putting podcasts to work. It's a commonplace narrative for podcast advertising to sell itself on how podcasts are great at targeting niche audiences. This piece from the Charlotte Business Journal serves as anecdotal backup that it's still happening. Writer Laura Williams Tracy writes about how Charlotte, North Carolina brands are embracing the B2B capabilities of podcasting by starting their own shows. A local plastic surgery outfit has shifted from hosting free seminars to court potential patients to hosting a successful local podcast. National Gypsum, a construction supply company based in Charlotte, now runs a podcast targeting listeners in the building industry, filling empty time while they drive to job sites. And for our final top story, revisiting future of the news 1 year later, Stagwell Industries news advertising. A look into the second year of the news advertising study launched by Stagwell CEO Mark Penn back in 2024. The study aims to highlight advertisers, as Penn says, unintentional boycott of running on news publications. Brand safety and suitability tools and practices applied too strictly can have the same impact as using outdated keyword block lists. And as the Future of News study finds, with a survey of 49,990 U.S. adults from March to April 2024, ads running on dangerous topics perform just as well as safe topics. Reputational brand metrics consistently perform within single-digit percentage points on average on news stories containing topics like inflation, crime, or presidential candidates, as they do to safe topics like business, entertainment, and sports. All right, now we got a fun side one. This is a partner highlight. Occasionally, Sounds Profitable reaches out to partners to chat about recent developments or interesting stories relevant to their area of expertise. Today, I've got one from Brian Barletta and Catherine Brown, Vice President of Revenue and Partnerships at The Roost. Specifically, Catherine shares how the Theo Von Pepsi ad campaign around the Super Bowl came to be. She breaks down how The Roost made interviewing a nonverbal polar bear work, and how brands like Pepsi are giving podcasters enough creative control to appeal to their audiences that they know intimately. You can catch the full interview on soundsprofitable.com, linked in the description as always. As for the rest of the news, Justin Jackson of the Podcast Standards Project has a new post explaining the current goals of the PSP, as well as how they plan to pursue those goals and affect change in the wider industry. Semaphore reports they have indications Podcast One is seeking a buyer to take the company private. Not often podcasts get into the New York Post, but I've got one here for you today. NPR host David Green has filed a lawsuit alleging Google cloned his voice for one of Notebook LLM's preset podcast host voices. Google denies this, saying the voice is from a licensed actor. Sports Social Podcast Network has signed a 3-month deal with Tide to integrate across Sports Social's rugby vertical during the Six Nations tournament, including collaboration with their podcast, For the Love of Rugby. Lamorne Morris, co-creator of the Q-Code audio drama Unwanted, is set to co-star against Kenan Thompson in a movie adaptation directed by Richie Keene. The Earbuds Podcast Collective marks its 9th anniversary, congratulations by the way, by inviting subscribers and readers to fill out a survey on what newsletter readers value most. Entrants will be entered into a giveaway featuring prizes from creator-focused companies like RSS.com, Headliner, and Transistor. And finally, Spotify says generative AI has become such a useful development tool that their best developers have not written, quote, a single line of code since December, end quote. Be sure to check out the links to everything I just talked about by clicking the one link in your show notes that'll take you to today's episode post on soundsprofitable.com. The download is written and produced by myself, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Gavin Gaddis, and I'll see you tomorrow.